Have you ever looked around your home and truly believed it was the safest place in the world? I did. For years, my house was my castle, my sanctuary. It was where my children took their first steps, where we celebrated birthdays, where we built a lifetime of memories. I never, not for a single second, imagined that all of it could be taken away in one single night. And I certainly never thought a simple document, tucked away in a filing cabinet, would be the very thing to give us a second chance. This is the story of the night our house flooded, and how our home insurance policy didn't just save our house, it saved our future. Let me set the scene. It was a typical Tuesday evening in late autumn. The year was 2024. Rain had been tapping against the windows for hours, a steady, soothing rhythm. My wife and I had just put the kids to bed. The house was quiet, filled with that peaceful end-of-day silence. We were in the kitchen, discussing mundane things. What to pack for the school trip next week, maybe planning a weekend movie night. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. But sometimes, the biggest disasters begin with the smallest, most unnoticed signs. I remember complaining that the water pressure in the shower had been a little weak that evening. I made a mental note to check it in the morning, thinking it was just a minor plumbing quirk. That was my first mistake, assuming it was minor. You see, we become so comfortable in our homes that we ignore the whispers until they become screams. Little did I know, while we were talking about movies and packed lunches, a small aging pipe behind the kitchen wall had given way. It started as a tiny drip, no bigger than a teardrop. But with every passing minute, that drip was becoming a trickle, and that trickle was preparing to unleash a flood. It was around 2 a.m. when a sound jolted me awake. It wasn't a loud crash. It was something subtler, more sinister. A steady rushing sound like a distant waterfall, but it was coming from inside the house. My heart immediately started pounding. You know that feeling when you're jerked from sleep and your instincts scream that something is very wrong? I swung my legs out of bed, and my feet landed not on the firm wooden floor, but in an inch of cold, shocking water. My blood ran cold. I fumbled for the light switch, my mind refusing to process what was happening. When the light flickered on, the scene was something out of a nightmare. Water was everywhere. It was pouring from the ceiling below the bathroom, cascading down the stairs. The beautiful rug in the hallway was submerged. I could hear the water dripping, pouring, destroying everything it touched. I shouted for my wife, and the next few minutes were a blur of panic. Waking the kids, carrying them to safety on the dry second floor, wading through the rising water to find the main water shut-off valve. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. Our home, our safe place, was being devoured from the inside out. The long, dark morning. By the time the emergency plumber arrived and stopped the flow, the damage was done. Several inches of water covered the entire ground floor. Our hardwood floors were buckling. The bottom halves of our walls were soaked and already beginning to swell. Our sofa, our bookshelves, our family photographs, everything was ruined. The smell was a damp, sickening punch to the gut. We stood there, huddled on the stairs, watching the dawn light break through the windows, illuminating the devastation. It felt like a death. The death of our home as we knew it. In that moment of utter despair, a thought fought its way through the fog of shock. Home insurance. I had paid the premium every year without fail, almost on autopilot. I never thought I would need it. It was just another bill. But as I looked at the destruction, that policy document became the most important piece of paper in the world. Was it comprehensive enough? Would it cover this? What was the deductible? 1,000 questions raced through my mind, accompanied by a fierce, desperate hope. This was our second chance, and it all hinged on making that one phone call. My hands were still shaking as I dialed the 24-hour claims number from my insurance app. I expected bureaucracy, long hold times, and a disinterested voice. But to my surprise, a calm and empathetic representative named Sarah answered almost immediately. I stumbled through explaining what had happened, my voice cracking with emotion. She listened patiently. She didn't just hear me, she understood. Her first words were, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. We're here to help. Let's start with making your family safe." That initial call was a masterclass in crisis management. Sarah didn't just take details, she took control. Within 2 hours, a disaster restoration crew was at our door. These were not just cleaners, they were specialists. They brought industrial-grade water pumps, giant fans, and dehumidifiers. They moved what furniture could be saved to a dry area and started the critical process of water extraction and drying to prevent mold. This immediate response, all covered under our policy, was the first step in stopping the damage from getting worse. This is a crucial point, friends. The first 24 to 48 hours are critical in a water damage situation. Mold can start growing incredibly fast, turning a bad situation into a health hazard and a much more expensive repair. Understanding the process. The adjuster's visit the next day. The insurance adjuster, a man named David, arrived. I was nervous. I had heard stories of adjusters trying to minimize payouts. But David was thorough, professional, and surprisingly human. He walked through every room with a tablet, taking photos, notes, and measurements. He explained everything he was doing. He wasn't there to fight me, he was there to assess the facts and determine the scope of the work needed to restore our home to its pre-loss condition. This is where the educational part becomes so important. David sat down with me and went over our policy in simple English. He explained the difference between actual cash value and replacement cost value for our belongings. Actual cash value factors in depreciation what your 10-year-old TV is worth today, which is much. Replacement cost value, which we were lucky to have, pays what it costs to buy a brand new TV of similar kind and quality. This distinction can mean a difference of thousands of dollars. He also explained our coverage A, which is for the dwelling itself, the structure of the house, and coverage B for other structures like a detached garage. And most importantly for us, he confirmed that this type of sudden, accidental water discharge from a burst pipe was a covered peril. The emotional toll and the temporary home while the physical restoration began. We faced another challenge. Where would we live? The house was uninhabitable. The constant noise of fans and dehumidifiers was deafening, and the air was thick and humid. This is another aspect of a good home insurance policy that many people overlook: loss of use coverage. Because the damage made our home unlivable, our policy paid for us to stay in a fully furnished apartment nearby. It covered the rent, utilities, and even additional living expenses like increased food costs from eating out more often. This wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. It gave my children a stable, clean, and quiet place to sleep and do their homework. It gave us a sense of normalcy in the midst of chaos. Trying to live in a construction site would have been incredibly stressful, especially for the kids. The emotional toll of losing your home is heavy enough without having to live in the wreckage. The loss of use coverage was a lifesaver, a cushion that allowed us to focus on healing as a family while the professionals rebuilt our house. The rebuilding of Phoenix from the ashes. The restoration process was long. It took months. The damaged drywall had to be cut away several feet up from the floor to ensure all the moisture was gone. The hardwood floors had to be completely torn out. All the electrical outlets and wiring that got wet had to be inspected and replaced. It was disruptive and dusty, but we visited the site regularly, and seeing the progress was therapeutic. It was a visible sign of recovery. And here is where the second chance truly revealed itself. We were not just putting things back the way they were. With the approval of the adjuster, we were able to make small upgrades. For example, when replacing the damaged drywall, we used mold-resistant drywall, which was a slight upgrade but added long-term value and peace of mind. The old, problematic plumbing that caused the disaster was completely replaced with new, modern PEX piping throughout the entire house. We were essentially getting a crucial systems upgrade that we had been putting off for years. Our home was not just being repaired, it was being made better, stronger, and safer than before. The lesson learned, a message to use. Oh, why am I telling you this story? It's not just to share a personal trauma. It's to give you the knowledge I wish I had before that night. I was lucky. I had a good policy with a reputable company. But many people don't realize the gaps in their coverage until it's too late. Here is what I learned, and what I urge every homeowner in the USA and UK to do today. First, dig out your home insurance policy. Actually read it. Don't just file it away. Understand what your dwelling coverage limit is. Is it enough to rebuild your home at today's construction costs? With inflation in 2025, construction materials and labor are more expensive than ever. You need to make sure your coverage keeps pace. Second, check your personal property coverage. Is it actual cash value or replacement cost? If it's a CV, consider upgrading. The difference is massive. Third, and this is vital, create a home inventory. After the flood, we had to list every single item that was destroyed. It was an agonizing process, trying to remember what books were on the shelf, how many pairs of shoes were in the closet. We learned our lesson. Now, we have a simple video walkthrough of our entire house, opening drawers and cabinets, stored securely in the cloud. It takes 20 minutes and it is invaluable in a claim. Finally, talk to your agent. Ask them questions. What is my deductible for wind versus hail versus water damage? Is sewer backup covered? Many standard policies do not include this, and it's a critical add-on. Be proactive. Your home is likely your most valuable asset. Protecting it properly is not an expense, it's an investment in your peace of mind. Today, our home is restored. The new floors are beautiful. The walls are freshly painted. The smell of damp is a distant memory, replaced by the familiar scent of home. But the house feels different now. It feels more resilient, not just structurally, but in our hearts. We appreciate every moment in it more deeply. The flood took away our sense of invincibility, but it gave us something more valuable, a profound gratitude for the safety we now have. That piece of paper, the home insurance policy, was the key. It was the difference between financial ruin and a fresh start. It was the barrier between us and disaster. It gave us a second chance. Don't wait for a disaster to force you to understand your policy. Learn from my story. Be prepared. Because the truth is, you never know when a simple drip behind a wall will change your life. But you can know that if it does, you have a plan. You have a partner. You have a second chance waiting in your filing cabinet. Make sure it's a good one.